Hello and welcome to another podcast of The Odd Couple. This is Siddharth.
I'm Dr. Shish.
And today with us we have Mr. Ashwin Gangaraju. Ashwin is a fine example of how film schools benefit aspiring filmmakers. A native of Kadapa, Ashwin completed his engineering and was getting very comfortable with his software industry job, but his increasing inclination towards film direction and script writing drove him to quit his job and seek admission at the Ramanaidu Film School. Thereafter, it was a swift rise. He secured a scholarship and was handpicked by none other than S.S. Rajamouli during his second semester, after which he was moved as the assistant director for Eega and Bahubali. Yes, you heard it right. He was the assistant director on Bahubali. So welcome Ashwin to the Odd Couple podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Sid, and thanks, Ashish. Thank you for having me here.
Ashwin, I have the biggest question to ask you, man, to start this off. First thing I want to know is, what did your parents say when you told them you wanted to get into cinema?
Yeah, surprisingly, they didn't say anything. Anything in the sense, they didn't react the way I expected them to be. First things first, I was a very bright student, good marks and stuff like that. So I was working in Bangalore in a software company. For a vacation, I went home. So by then, I was actually researching about films and stuff like that. It had been already 3 years. It was in my second year of engineering where I discovered that I can tell stories in a biggest way possible, that is cinema. So I was actually checking myself whether I'm thinking right, whether I'll fit into that, whether it was really a fascination or passion. So I was actually researching and checking myself, watching a lot of films and stuff like that. It was already 3 years, and by the end of my engineering, it was already 3 years where I was thinking to be a filmmaker. So I decided I'll go there some point of time. So by then I already got selected in one of the software companies when I was in my campus. So I jumped into it. I was working in Bangalore. I think 6 months into it, I think I couldn't do it. Sit in a place and do the same work again and again and stuff like that. So my mind was completely onto films. That's when I decided to go home and give them a hint, not scare them with what I was thinking.
But what tipped you finally at the end of the day? What tipped you to say, okay, let's leave all this? I mean, come on, you had a good job. You know, the Indian dream of any parent is, the son has to be engineer, doctor. You did it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's a very tough decision to actually throw all that away, walk away from it, and to go into an uncertain line like the cinema industry. So what tipped you finally?
I don't know. It's being from a place where I was. We love watching films. Somewhere I don't know what ticked me, but I was definitely checking whether I was thinking right for a lot of years.
You kept playing the idea in your head.
It was not a decision taken overnight, but yeah, something ticked overnight. But I was checking myself for almost 3 4 years whether I really fit into it, because once I decided to go, I'm not coming back. So that's there.
Correct.
Like I said, I went home and told them, see, this is what I'm interested in. I want to write and direct films. And obviously, everybody loves films. But when you tell your parents that I want to get into films as a career, I think they'll take a step back. That's what they did. But somehow they trusted me the way I conveyed it to them. They have a lot of confidence in me because I was one of the bright students. So they asked me to give it a try. So I said, okay. The thing they didn't know was, once I go, I am not coming back. So they thought I'll just go try it. They thought I'll just go try and come back. And the final push is what my brother gave. I was staying with my brother in Bangalore. So while I was working in a software company, I was constantly looking for a source to get into the films because I didn't know anyone. And I don't have any acquaintance who is working in films so that I can go and asks them for suggestions or stuff like that. But only way I thought I could get in was through film schools. I was looking into all the film schools and I applied for the New York Film Academy also. I got selected, but again it's a lot of financial thing to go there and study and stuff like that. But even
Yes, it's expensive.
yeah, stuff like that. But eventually, so I grew up watching Telugu films. I grew up watching our heroes fight, heroes dance, and stuff like that. But somewhere in between that, I want to tell a good story also. So end of the day, I'll be making Telugu films where I'm culturally rooted.
Correct. So it's ideally better to do it in our country.
Yeah, it made sense to me. I applied for the Pune Film School also, but I gave a lot of thought, and finally it did make sense to me to get into a space where I can get into the Telugu film industry directly rather than going somewhere else and coming here. So fortunately, the same year I was thinking to get into film school. That it's the same year that Ramanadu Film School was opened in Hyderabad, which is headed by Mr. D. Ramanaidu, late D. Ramanaidu, who is a grandfather of Rana.
Oh, okay. So Ashwin, it was just the other day we were discussing nepotism and everything on the podcast, and here you are, a debutant director. You have a new movie on the anvil which is going to be released shortly,
Yeah.
and you do not have any big film fam. You don't come from a big film family, and you didn't have a foothold of sorts.
Yeah.
And how did the film school actually help you out to get a foothold? And as I mentioned earlier, that SS Rajamouli actually chose you from a scholarship. So could you take us through that?
Yeah, as I told you, I applied for Ramanada Film School, and they called me up for an interview. But for every batch, they only take some 30 odd people. They called me up for an interview. I came to Hyderabad and gave my personal interview, and there was also a thing they were testing us for. They show us a film, and they ask us to analyze it and write something about it, whatever we think. It has to be very personal, whatever you're thinking about the film. So
Right.
I gave that, and I gave my personal interview, and I went back to Bangalore doing what I was doing every day, the same thing. And after a month or so, they got back to me saying that you were selected among the 30 students out of many who gave the interview. So I had to join immediately by paying so and so money. So I didn't want to ask at home. So I told them, if there is an option called scholarship, I'll go ahead. Otherwise, I'll go. I am already doing something. I learned something, and next year maybe probably I'll join.
You'll save up and join.
Yeah, save up and join. And they said, no, that's not happening and stuff like that. So I gave it up. I continued doing whatever I was doing.
Oh,
Yeah. Then after a couple of months, they got back to me with a mail just before a day they were starting their classes. I went to my office, opened my mail, and there was a mail saying that Mr. D. Suresh Babu had a meeting, and fortunately, I was one of the one or two positions in the interview or whatever the exams they gave in. They said, why didn't this guy join? He asked something like that, and so he had some financial thing. So then Suresh Babu told them, just ask him to come off. We are giving him a scholarship and stuff like that. So
Wow.
this was there in the mail. This is what happened in the meeting, and you can come and join us if you want to. And morning at 9 o'clock, I opened the mail in my office. Then I called my brother. This is what happened. The same day evening, I took the train. I came to Hyderabad and sat in the class the next day. So I am in the absconded list still in the office where I was working.
that Edmund guy is hunting for that ID card. You still haven't returned that ID card. That Edmund guy is still searching for you.
Funny thing was, I joined film school. There were 3 semesters actually, which is 6 months each, which is 1.5 year. So after finishing my second semester, Mr. S.S. Rajamouli came to our film school to pick up few new writers, because Ega was something which is very unique in terms of storytelling, not only for Telugu cinema but also for Indian cinema.
Absolutely.
He wanted to pick some writers, some new writers who can throw in some interesting ideas for his scripts.
So a quick interruption here. I'm so sorry. For all our listeners who hasn't seen Ega, you should definitely go see it. It's one of the first Indian fantasy action film, we can call it.
Yeah.
By S.S. Rajamouli. We had the greats, all of them acting in it. And obviously, I mean, just go check it out. That's what Ashwin is referring to.
Yeah.
So you got picked up by Rajamouli.
Yeah, I got picked up because Suresh Babu sir was one of the co-producers of the film. So he suggested Mr. Rajamouli to go to the film school and see if we can pick up some writers if you were looking for. So he came in, he gave us a idea and asked us to develop our own story. And he came after a week. We all 15 odd people who wrote their own story based on the idea he gave. So we narrated, all of us narrated, and he picked 2 people among the 15. So I was one of them. So I worked with him for the script for 6 months, and then as an AD. And then I went on to assisting him for Bahubali 1 and 2. So yeah, that was my
Your journey.
kind of.
This itself sounds like a movie.
Yeah, really. We can make
One nice hero entry scene,
Yeah,
no? For a
that's
podcast, hero
the,
entry scene.
that's the beauty about movies and people who are working in movies. You ask anyone, they have some interesting story to tell how they came into films. Interesting dramatic story with a lot of twists and turns, like how I had in my story. Yeah.
So on that note, we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two. Check it out! Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
And we're back with Ashwin Rangaraju. Ashwin, see, from the beginning, I've been really wanting to talk to you, especially about Indian cinema.
Yeah.
You talked about Eega, and very interestingly, it was a very different movie. Now, when we take our Indian cinema and the evolution of Indian cinema, for one thing, it has a very strong identity of its own, which is, it's a musical, it is dramatical, but it's always mostly a love story. Even if it's a action movie or a serious movie, we will have some romance in it, and we have to have that song in it. So moving away from all of that and doing a movie like Eega for me was really different at that period of time. It was a different concept. Why is it so difficult for us to move away and make more movies like that?
Again, it's just my understanding. We as an Indian film industry, we don't make genre-specific films. So since the beginning, maybe it was coming that way from the history of filmmakers. They were trying to make one film for all the sectors of audience. There are,
good point.
we call it mass cinema, right? We call it commercial cinema. So in one film, we try to have one love story for youth, one set of family section for the family audience.
Comedy.
A comedy, it has to be there, relief here and there in the screenplay, and we have those action sequences for the mass audience. I think it's a genre by itself for in Indian cinema to have everything together. I mean, it worked in a lot of films, and if you ask me, it's been more successful formula in Indian cinema. Indian cinema is known for it. It's been our culture to have everything on the plate for everyone. Yeah, there is nothing wrong in it because our audience want that.
But do you feel like your audience are changing and there is a need of the hour for those type of genre-based movies? Like Bahubali is a different genre. I think it started the whole trend of the whole historical-based movies, and now there are a lot of movies which are now coming out about the history-based movies, right? So is there that air present in cinema industry now?
That's what now audience are always ready to watch a good entertaining whatever that is. But my boss, Mr. S.S. Ajmoli, keep doing that. Show people what they can do, what we can do as an Indian cinema. He made Eega, and unfortunately a lot of films of the genre didn't follow. But he made Bahubali. He showed people what we can do with bigger scale with better emotions. As you say, there has to be a torchbearer to show people what they can do. Bahubali and Eega are such.
Another question I want to ask you, just for my understanding, basically. Now, when you're a director, do you always have to be a writer, or are we short of good writers in our country that most directors just put it on themselves to say, let me write a story and do that story? Because I think Amir Khan was the one who was talking about it, where he actually said that in our industry, I mean the Indian cinema industry, most writers are not paid that well, and so when you don't economically give them enough, then you're not going to get great scripts. You're not going to create good writers. So do you feel there is a lack of good writers that most directors believe they have to be?
There are lack of good writers, and that's the reason why most of the first time directors write the scripts by themselves. So I write stories, but if I can find someone who writes better than me, I'll give up writing. I'll just simply direct. So there are lack of good writers, as you mentioned. Yeah, not rewarding them, not crediting them properly was one of the major reasons why a traditional writer also wants to become a director. Lack of recognition. So
correct. I think that's a damn good point, Ashwin. I'll tell you why. Because see, like some stories are really nice, right? But by the time it comes on the screen, it's absolute crap. Now, I don't know. I'm just an example which I could throw at you is probably the Justice League movie, which was directed by another guy, and then now we have the Snyder Cut, and people are like, the Snyder Cut is so much better because somebody envisioned it absolutely different. So a director brings that whole vision to the movie, right? And that's his talent. But a story writer has his talent also by putting down a script. It can be interpreted differently, you know. So when these story writers don't have their movie told, they become directors, but maybe they're not great directors, right?
Yeah, that's when you see a bad film.
Correct. True.
I mean, if someone can write better and direct better, he can be both. When he is only good at directing, it's better to opt for some other writer. And again, if we search, we can find writers, but there are hardly any writers in India. So who are professional writers, I am saying. See, there are a lot of films coming in there because they are being written mostly by the director. There is definitely a lack of community of writers in India, professional writers who will only sit and write.
I think a classic example is the Malayalam film industry, where we had a wealth of great literary, I mean, as you said, no professional writers,
Yeah.
right? Published writers, and we had great directors who came together and made some epic film movies, which were dubbed and remade into other languages and all, which Priyadarshan has done a lot. But I think that kind of rules your point why the Malayalam film industry was probably a couple of steps ahead for a couple of decades by the time the other industry caught up, because we had a professional set of writers, professional set of directors who came together and made magic. Obviously, let's not forget the actors and actresses who put a face to the whole story.
Yeah.
It's so easy for, as a viewer, all I do is pay 200 rupees, go to a theater, eat some popcorn,
Trash the movie.
just trash the movie. If I didn't like one thing, if I didn't like that hero's face, or if I like the hero too much and I didn't like the hero,
Yeah.
okay, then I'm like, what a crap movie. I mean, what's wrong? But then at the same time, I feel after meeting you and after meeting a lot of people in the film industry, I realize how many people, I mean, it's like thousands of people involved in making that 180-minute film.
I'll tell you again by requesting you one thing. Don't change your opinion by meeting film industry people. You say the same crap. So that's what makes the films interesting. You shouldn't get affected by the amount of work they do. Your movie watching shouldn't change by knowing the amount of hard work that they put in to make the film.
So basically you're saying as a consumer, I should see the product and judge the product as what
You
it
be
is.
yourself.
Fair enough, yeah.
Because that's when the movies work. That's where we get the money from. So that's where we understand whether we made a good film or a bad film. Whoever made that, they'll understand and they'll try to make a better film. So, see, I've been in the film industry and I've seen what goes into it, what comes out of it and stuff like that. But I'll still be that guy when I go to the movie,
Yeah.
which you are talking about.
Okay.
I'll still be that guy when I go watch some other film made by somebody else. So that's when I understand the reality, no? Then I come back and check myself.
Yeah, because I went to a movie shoot because I think it was some... so I stay in Besanagar in Chennai, and there's some shooting happening in the Besanagar beach. And there was a shooting where this Esther Year's actor, Tamil actor Karthik was shooting. He was sitting under the umbrella. There's no vanity van those days. Just under umbrella, one guy is fanning, one guy is doing makeup. And I'm waiting there for 1 hour and they're still not shooting. They're still setting up. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, come on, shoot. I have to go and have my lunch. I'm like, it is taking forever. Why do you guys take so long? I mean, I understand. And that's when I realized that 180-minute film, or however long that film ends up being cut to, is actually months, if not years of time invested. So can you throw some light on that?
See, I'll just take you through the process I know. Yeah, once we have the story, we start the treatment. That's what we call, when you add up treatment and dialogues, that's what you call a screenplay. So when we are almost done writing the screenplay, we start breaking it down to the different crafts. I mean, to the actors, to the locations, to the costumes and stuff like that. We break it down to and assign each craft to the department head, and we try to prep ourselves for the shoot. So once we finalize the location, we have our actors finalized, and if there is a song, like you mentioned, if there is a song, we record it prior to it. We record it with the music director. We record it with the lyricists and stuff like that. We get the song ready. Yeah, for that situation, that song might take place in a single location or multiple locations. We break down that also. So which part of the song we are going to shoot in this particular location and stuff like that. So this is how the shoot happens, you know. For example, the first scene of the movie happens in a house. In the same location, the climax also happens. So we shoot it together because shoot happens on the location basis.
So it's not chronologically shot, but locationally shot.
No. Films are never shot chronologically. It's always based on the location. Or if it's a star, it's based on his dates. It a lot of parameters affect it. No, like if there is a look change. If, for example, I'm saying. I was telling you that in a location, I'm shooting first scene of the movie and the climax of the movie. I go to that location, I shoot both of them together. If there is a look change of an actor from first scene to last scene, I don't shoot them together.
Oh, yeah.
You understand?
Understood. Yeah.
I go to the other locations and shoot the scenes where the actor look the same. I mean, let's say the first half of the film. If his look changes in the second half, then I'll come back to the location and shoot it because it's very important. For example, you have hero has a beard in the first half and second half he doesn't have. Then I schedule the shoot based on the because it takes time to grow back the beard. Then I'll shoot. Maybe I shoot the without the beard scenes first and then go to the beard scenes.
Sounds like such a nightmare. Thank God we're not in the Indian cinema.
Dr. Sheesh and I'll be the worst movie directors because we don't plan anything. All our podcasts that you heard so far are completely unscripted. We didn't know what questions we were going to ask Ashwin Gangaraju. Oh my God, that sounds like a lot of work.
No, scheduling a film, I mean, it's just one of those parameters I told you. There are thousands of parameters which decides the schedule of the film. For example, I say there are some 10 actors in a scene which I have to shoot. Let's say all the 10 are busy actors. Then it's held to get all their dates together and in a single day and shoot it.
That itself should make you guys choose a guy who's not that popular, you know, find some guy who's like, you know, who's got dates.
I think Dr. Ashish is hinting that he wants to act in your next movie.
Chance. One doctor role is there, Amachan.
I had one doctor role in this film, you missed it. So
Damn it! What were you doing?
He'll write you into it,
Yeah,
Ashish. He's a writer also. He'll write you into it next time. Don't worry.
yeah, I'll definitely write it.
I can come back as his reincarnation.
Yeah, sometimes that happens also. If it's getting too much of difficulty to schedule, I mean, to get the dates of all the actors, sometimes you choose, you put that busy actor aside. If it's okay to go ahead with a new actor in that particular character, you go ahead with it. It's also the comfort. A lot of things. I mean, too many parameters decides the schedule of the film. As you were asking how we start the day, usually if it's a day scene, we start at 6 a.m. If we have call sheet, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. is one call sheet. If your scene has to be shot in the night, then we go ahead, extend our day towards the night and how much ever you want it. Sometimes we shoot until 2, sometimes we shoot until 6 in the morning. It depends. So
another question I have is the songs in this movie, no? Do you guys decide that in this movie I need 5 songs? And then like you just like record 5 songs and then you just put it in, fix it in? Or do they really have in your director's mind a natural position in that movie that I'm going to go in at this point into a song sequence? Or you just 5 songs we need in the album, we're going to just put that, fix it in somewhere. Now, as a director, how do you take that call?
I don't know. I don't come from a generation where I didn't work with a director where he thinks like that. I heard there are a lot of other directors who follow the format like 3 fights, 5 songs. It has to be there. Like I was telling you, no.
Formulas.
Yeah, that formula of film, they go ahead with such calculations. So if you ask me, I don't do like that. I am writing a script. It naturally comes to me that there has to be a song. The reason why, the song is another way of telling a story. You know, for example, I can just tell you this. In the beginning of my film, it starts with a song. The reason why I've placed that song in the beginning, because I wanted to tell so much of information. If I put them in scenes, it take me like half an hour to establish everything I want to tell in the scenes. So that's why I tell that in a song. I show everything. By the end of the song, you will understand the world we have created for you to be involved in this particular film. So
right. So this is what Ashwin is talking about, is his directorial debut, which is the Akash Vani, which is releasing soon. Yes. So spoiler, it starts with a song. and it's a story. So that much we know we can expect. Great. Yeah, so on that spoiler note, we will take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two.
Check it out!
Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
Welcome back, guys. Ashwin, to continue, how long have you been working on that movie?
Yeah, it's been 2.5 years. If you ask me about when did I first write the story and all, so when I was in film school, I wrote this story,
Which is 10 years back.
which is 10 years back. When I was before I even joined Mr. Rajmouli for Riga, I wrote this story. So as I told you, there was a lot of prep for me to decide whether I can write, whether I can direct before I even joined film school. That's when I wrote a lot of stories. This is one of them. So in my film school, I wrote this story, and I wasn't actually thinking to make this as my first film, but it happened because when I wrote this story, I wasn't matured enough to write the screenplay for. I wasn't, because it's a lot of thought process. When I wrote this story, I was 21 or 22 or something like that. So when I wrote this idea, not the story, when I wrote this idea, I didn't have enough maturity to develop it into a full-fledged script. So it took almost 10 years for me to go back to it and see it and decide to develop into a script and pitch it to someone so that I can make it into a film. So you will understand after watching the film why I said that. So
I can't wait to see it, man. But I'm gonna review it as the consumer,
yeah, definitely.
not a jumper.
No, Ashish, you have to review it as a doctor who's going to get a role in his next film. You're forgetting the important point.
Done.
Then write two reviews. One as a consumer, one as a doctor.
One as the wishful cinema actor.
Then go to my film twice so that I'll get twice of you. Like
See?
150, yeah.
Already thinking like a true director.
Ashwin, you were mentioning, I mean, I remember you were pretty much done with your film last year, but you were waiting for this whole COVID hit. I mean, the whole industry was devastated. There was no film being released. All theaters were shut down. You had zero revenue. You had zero opportunities. So it's a two-part question. One is, how was it during that phase? How did the industry and you cope with it, especially since you had a nearly complete film and the pangs of it around it? And second is, why didn't you release the film on the OTT like Netflix or Amazon Prime? And why did you wait till for it to be released in the theaters?
Yeah, to answer your first part of the question, there was a lot of ambiguity. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody had any clue like when this was going to be over and when we will get back to the normalcy. Yeah, we were always hoping that someday this will get over and we'll get back to our shooting days and release our films. There was only hope. And who had better offers coming from the OTT, they went for it. Akashvani had very interesting offers from the OTT. They were offering more than what we spent on the film to make it. But theatre is a theatre for me. Not only for me, but everybody in the film industry. So personally, if you ask me why I didn't go for OTT, and with the support of my producer, I am saying it. When I was in college, it's in the theatre that where I decided to become a director. It's in that euphoria. In between that euphoria, I decided to become a director. Theatre is always an emotion to me. So if I spent my childhood watching TV and decided to become a director, I would have been making stuff for films, TV and stuff like that. Again, saying that I'm not anything against OTT, but when I was writing the script, it was written for theatre. When I was making the film, it was made for the theatre. Maybe if I would have made for the OTT, especially for the OTT, I would have made the film very differently.
Interesting.
It's with that broader vision we made the film. It's with everybody else. Only few films went for the OTT, especially the southern film industry stuck to the theatres. Like we have, as soon as the theatre opened this January, 50% of occupancy. Starting from January, we have every week 2-3 releases who had been waiting all through the corona phase to release their films in the theatre.
How are these movies doing now? Are they doing well? I mean, it's only 50% occupancy.
It's again the same thing, you know. If the film is good, it'll do good. There is no
So they're doing well.
there is no other ways to it. If the film is good, it'll do good. But rather than doing good, it's doing extremely good right now.
Oh, really?
Because we locked ourselves inside our homes. As soon as this biggest form of entertainment came to life again outside, people started going to it. There was one film which released for Sankranti, which is Crack. With 50% of the occupancy, they have recovered all the money, and they made profits, and it's one of the biggest blockbusters. Imagine. So
That's crazy. That's crazy.
yeah, every week we have one blockbuster.
But that's true. In India especially, it's always been that every Friday was like literally movie night.
Like somebody told me, like if you go to a sad movie, you like crying in the crowd, you like laughing with the crowd, so you like getting scared with the crowd. That's a different experience. You won't get it in the like your home theater and stuff like that. So it's a different experience. It's a different industry altogether. OTT. It's also great opportunity to tell stories differently. It's more creative freedom there to open up as a writer and director. But theater is theater, OTT is OTT.
No, I completely agree with Ashwin because I refuse to watch a Rajnikant, new movie of Rajnikant on the OTT platform. No, I will go to the theater. I want to shout, I want to whistle, I want to scream. Ashish has witnessed this embarrassingly when Robo 2 was launched.
No, I've also been one of them. But Robo 2 was just, oh God.
Yeah, that is like a hardcore Rajni fan saying it sucked. That's terrible.
It sucked. Yeah, I slept, man. I paid $2,000 for a ticket. Can you believe that? For me, for this fellow and my wife, $2,000 we spent, and then we went. $6,000 I paid for a ticket, and man, oh God.
He slept well.
I slept, yeah.
That's okay. 2000 is okay. 2000 is okay. I got beaten up by the police when I was in college.
What?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a commotion altogether to get the tickets for a star hero film when I was
Yeah, back in the day and all those Annamale Pandian era and all, oh God, it was crazy, man.
Yeah, and Chiranjeevi was ruling the roost back then also, no?
Yeah. It still is.
And there wasn't much theaters back then like how we have now, and so many screens in one theater mall. Now we'll have so many screens. Back then you'll have a standalone theater with just one screen or maximum two screens in that place.
And
So,
no AC, there'll be one fan with that long stick coming down. Correct. And you'll have people smoking
correct.
inside. Oh God. And those were the best movie watching experience, because I still remember this theater called Ganapati Ram in Adyar, and we used to go, we went and watched Roja over there, and we were like, oh my God. And hearing A.R. Rahman for the first time, and the visuals of Mani Ratnam and the snow-capped peaks of Kashmir, it was just a mind-blowing experience, no matter how crappy the theater was.
And you can clearly and you can clearly listen to the dialogue standing next street to the theater. It was so loud. So I used to
no Dolby, no Atmos,
Yeah.
nothing. But you could hear every dialogue.
Yeah, when I was in 11th and 12th grade, I used to go to the theater. Like I have to go like a show before to get the ticket to the next show. So I used to buy ticket and wait there, hearing all the film. Like I listen to all the dialogues and stuff like that, and I go and watch it in the next show. Yeah.
So there was no spoiler alert over there, because everything was spoiled pretty much, because you could hear it outside itself.
Yeah.
And there was no online booking. There was nothing. You had to go sweaty and get beaten by cops, as Ashwin mentioned, and get your tickets. I guess that explains the whole love for theater, why you're into this whole thing, and you waited through this corona to release it in the theater.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Not only me, 99% of the film industry waited for the theater. I mean, that's what we crave for, no? That's where the stars are made. So that's where the dreams come true. Yeah.
Ashwin, I wanted to ask you that, as a director, when you're making this whole movie and you've created your movie and then it goes into the censor board, and I've heard this time and over, like so many movies, get censored for this, that. That was one aspect. But the OTT, I think, brought in the angle where there was no censorship. Is my understanding right? that, you know, you had the freedom to do it, but now they're going to bring in that there's big talk about it, that the OTT platform needs to be censored, and, you know, there's going to come, a board is going to come in for that. What's your take on that? Do you think that that's a good thing? It's a bad thing? Is it stopping creativity?
It's definitely stopping creativity at some point of time. Also, not having censorship in OTT, I mean, even though it was not necessary to use a cuss word there, it is being used because thinking that it's a creative freedom. I don't know, it's every director and writer's personal choice, but if you ask me, there shouldn't be censorship for the OTTs, because that's where another window opens up for a writer to do something without any scare.
And extending to Ashish's question, one, you have the censor board who will say, oh, cut these scenes, oh, this is XYZ and all those flouting of rules. That's fair enough. Then there is the public saying, oh, this is anti, like AK versus AK. There was a huge furor of Anil Kapoor wearing an Air Force uniform and using curse words, right? And or something which happened with Padmavat. They're saying, oh, it's anti-national, it's pro-Aurangzeb, like some nonsense, right? With all the people without watching the movie. I understand at least censor board watches the movie. That I can understand. They have a point of view which we may agree or may not agree. It's okay. But what do you have to say with these bunch of people who, without watching a movie, or like people who spoke against Salman Rushdie without reading the book itself and banned the book in the whole country? So what's your view on that thing?
There is nothing to say about it. It's nonsense. You know, on the face of it, it's nonsense. So you either watch the film and decide whether it's hurting your feelings, but not by watching it. So
no, my question was from a writing perspective. Do you think, oh, I think this will piss off a few people, so I might as well avoid it, or will you? Is there gray areas which you don't mind playing around with?
it depends on the individual. You know, somebody might think, yeah, this might hurt few people. Let's cut it off. Somebody like that, this needs for the story to be told in a better way, they'll put it off. It
Depends how bold the director or writer is.
Yeah. Somebody like Anurag Kashyap, they won't think twice. They'll just put it. So,
But very, very weirdly, when Anurag Kashyap's thing, you're talking about that, right? When that movie's controversy came up, a lot of people are saying that it's created by the movie industry itself, all this hype and thing, to create noise about the movie. Is this a type of strategy used by movie makers nowadays for the marketing thing, or it's just our again wrong information?
no, it happens too. So any publicity is not a bad publicity. Anything that makes you talk about the film, it's good. Talk about it. It helps us. It's like publicity without any money spent.
So do you think that marketing plays a big role in any movie which comes out, or are you a purist where you feel like, no, I get it, a great movie would make a great movie, but can marketing make an average movie really great?
Yes, it does. It does. An average movie with good marketing, with proper marketing, a hit film will become a blockbuster. It's marketing does a lot of magic for the film. Proper marketing. So it's like any film, whether you like it or not, it is based on your expectation how the movie is going to be. So marketing is something that makes you expect something or not to expect something. So how you project your movie into the audience mind is what that is going to decide how they are going to watch the film, how they are going to react about it. So if you whatever is there in the film, don't divert and tell what to watch. They'll come watch the film and they like it.
Right. I think best way to market a film might be like, don't go watch this movie. I forbid you. And the moment you forbid something, no? I still remember of the story of how cocaine was an OTC drug made by Bayer Pharmaceuticals. So it had very average sales, but the moment it got banned, the demand went up 700%. So, I think we should release some kind of scandalous news about your new movie and do some guerrilla marketing so that everybody like, oh, in Akashvani, this is there. I should go watch it. No. So, is there any juicy things that you would like to tell our viewers what they can expect in your directorial debut?
I don't know. It's if I tell you the juicy thing, there is no point of me making this film. So, because the whole point relies on that one emotion which drives through the film. So
fair enough.
Is this stemming from a real feeling?
It's coming from a real feeling.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yeah, see, I knew it. There you go, guys. There you go. So now watch the movie and try and figure out where it's all stemming
Yeah.
from.
So Ashwin, over to you. A quick plug about your new movie.
Yeah, this is my first film as a writer and director, which is called Akashvani. So, which is likely to release in Telugu. Hopefully, we are trying to do it in Tamil also, if the market permits. It's a film which most of you haven't seen on Indian cinema. I can guarantee it. But all we are trying to do here is to give an experience to take something back home. It will be worth your like all the trouble to come to the theater, park your vehicles, and come up, sit in the theater, and buy a popcorn. I'm hoping it will give everything back to you as an experience.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Ashwin. We all of us can't wait to see Akashvani, which is releasing soon. And we'll definitely go to the theaters, buy our popcorns.
I'm not sure about popcorn much. I can afford the ticket nowadays, but I can't afford popcorn.
You know what? This is the
theater.
biggest bullshit. A doctor telling we common folk that he can't afford. Ashwin, you better keep his number. He'll be the next producer for your movie. He can afford popcorn itself. So
I think I'll have to pay for myself to act in this
stop
movie.
helping these doctor scripts so much by making so much of money. So on that note, thank you so much for tuning to The Odd Couple. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for joining us on this fun chat and telling us a lot about what happens behind the scene. It was a total eye-opener. Thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for having me. I had a great talk. Yeah.
And Ashwin, I can't wait to have you back for a good director's cut where I'm going to give you a solid review as a consumer.
Yeah, I can't wait for it.
No. Ashish, then next time it is the Ashwin Ganga Raju who's on our podcast.
Yeah,
right?
sorry. Yeah.
So on that note, guys, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
When you go to the theaters, wear your mask, do all those things, but go to the theaters, watch this movie, and keep tuning to The Odd Couple podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.